I'll bother you. I'm going to eat the remainder of my Rice Krispie treat too.
I just put us live. I went for the grilled cheese, which is new in our neck of the woods.
Grilled cheese at Starbucks?
Yeah, it's actually pretty good.
Fancy. I have not had it, but I would not be surprised. Let's see. Okay.
Finding all the things.
I feel that. Hold on. Mute.
All right, we have two spots, Ventured and Smile Software. All right. Good to go?
Yep. Sorry, just had to sneeze.
No worries. All right, I'll get us started.
All right. At least my voice is a little bit better shape than it was at the end of last night. I had to like Darth Vader my way through the Force Awakens preview that we were doing for Incomparable.
Nice. Don't you just say, so John, and then like he just talks for 3 hours?
Yeah. You know what? No, John and Dan were both very courteous. I actually got words in.
Nice. It's because they fear when you had that hood up, they just feared that you'd become a Sith.
It's true. I'm not even wearing the proper coat, but I do have a picture of me as Darth Maul, which is kind of terrifying.
Oh, we got a picture of Georgia as Darth Maul too. We should put those together and see how much it scares people.
Yeah, the mashup. Hold on. All right. Well, you put this live and give us the intro. I'm going to see if I can find it.
I'm going to do the intro.
Okay. All
right. Today's episode is brought to you by another awesome podcast called Ventures, a series produced by iconic venture capital firm Kleiner Perkins, who has invested in Google, Amazon, Twitter, and Uber. The Ventured podcast takes a close look at some of the fastest growing tech trends in Silicon Valley, as well as behind the scenes interviews with tech giants from companies like Netflix and Google. You can find the show by searching Ventured on iTunes or SoundCloud. Thank you, Ventured. It is December 8th already, 2015. I'm Renee Ritchie, and right now we're going to talk about new Apple battery cases and everything else that is happening in the world of Apple. Really, it's December. We're still shipping product. This is the iMore Show. Joining me today, we have, as always, Serenity Caldwell. How are you, Ren?
Hi, I am okay. I'm recovering from a cold, so I apologize in advance if my audio sounds special.
You took all the cold. They told us we're getting above 0 temperatures all week, and I knew the cold had to go somewhere.
Yeah, it's rainy and horrible outside. My only solace is my London fog. My London fog is keeping me going.
Oh, you went for? I went for the mint with 2 packets of honey.
Ooh, that's a good idea. I want to try the gingerbread tea latte. I know this is not even remotely a Starbucks podcast, but I'm curious. I haven't tried it yet.
It is now at Phil's. Whenever I go to Phil's in South Bay, I get either the mint mojito or the gingerbread, and they are both amazing.
Mint mojito, that sounds awesome.
It's iced coffee. Yeah, it's iced coffee, and for people who aren't familiar with Phil's, it's not like a Starbucks. It's not an espresso-based place. It's only pour-over coffee, and there's always a huge lineup. And you go there, and you go up to your own personal barista, and they say, "How would you like it?" And they make you taste it to see if it's just perfect for you, and then you go and pay for it and take it away, and it's fabulous.
That's awesome. Yeah, as a non-coffee drinker, I really appreciate the fact that Starbucks has fancier tea drinks for things. Like sometimes I just don't want a flat tea. Like a black tea is great, and usually I drink just black tea. But sometimes you want a London fog. Sometimes you want a little bit of a holiday drink.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to try and make this more of an Apple show again, the other day I was out of Earl Grey tea. I went to get my little stash box, and it was double bergamot, which was really good. I went. There was no packets left, and I had to do a podcast like in an hour or something. So I ran out, and there was just a McDonald's there, and I was like, I don't know if this will work. So I went up and I said, "Do you have Earl Grey tea?" And they said, "Yes, we do." And then I paid with Apple Pay, and I took my watch out, and the person behind the counter was like, "Is that Apple Pay?" Like, yes, that's Apple Pay. Oh my God, that's Apple. Like, we got to try this. We got to try this. And they were so excited. And they held the thing out, and I tapped it like, oh my God, it's the first time we used Apple Pay here. It was awesome.
That's super cute.
Yeah.
They were doing that to me the entire time when I was at Disney World. It was a lot of like, oh, you're using that watch. We thought you were using the Magic Band. That's so awesome. And one of the other people was like, this is my first time ever doing this. Let's see if I don't screw it up.
Yeah, there are stories of people trying, like people when they had, after the Apple Watch was announced, but before it was available publicly, Apple did one of their largest carry programs in the history of the company. So a lot of their employees had them, and they were encouraging them to use it just to make sure that everything was working fine before they released it. And there are a couple times where people were paying for them, and they're like, "Oh, is that a Samsung watch?" They're like, "No, this is an Apple watch."
Let's not get confused here, folks.
Product secrecy, but credit. I mean, these are two
You
very.
dig it?
So, breaking news: Apple is still releasing products. Serenity. It is like almost mid-December. What's the
They're
matter with them?
releasing new products out of thin air, essentially.
Why? Like this. I mean, this honestly makes Christmas specials cry. I mean, it's so late in the year.
Yeah, it's like, all right, Apple, I would really like to work on some ebooks about your lovely product, but I can't do that if you keep on releasing more things.
And I mean, we should have seen it coming because they put out this magnetic charger for the Apple Watch, and it is like white and saucer shaped, and it was late. It was late in the year, and
It was.
usually people don't ship anything after Black Friday because that's when everyone does a lot of their shopping, and they just don't want one more thing out there. But lo and behold, woke up this morning, and Apple has got the smart battery case for iPhone 6s and iPhone 6 up on apple.com, and it's an odd product in many ways.
Yes, yes, it is. It's a very strange. Well, it has a hump, which is kind of step number one into the land of oddities.
I don't know. Is
Um,
that retro? Because back in the old days of smartphones, when I had a Trio, that if you wanted to get an extended battery, that's just what it looked like. And I had a Sadio extended battery hump on my Trio for like a year, and I feel like it's almost like bell bottoms or those like Luke Skywalker hairdos, and they've come back around.
I remember, you know what? I remember the land of humps. I had a Sony Ericsson 710A that was like a swivel phone
Yes,
that had a little bit of a bump to it too. I don't know. I mean, so the functional reason why there's a hump on this product is that it's made of silicone, and it's a silicone case, unlike Mophie and pretty much every other battery case in existence's hard shell case that comes in two parts and you
like a
pull that part
polycarb or
off.
something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's very odd to me that they would build it this way, but I at least understand the reasoning behind it, where they're like, okay, we want to build a case that's all in one. How do we build a case that's all in one? Well, it probably needs to be silicone. Okay, if it's going to be silicone, how do we get it off without breaking anything? And here's the part that really kind of niggles at me. I look at this product and I say, okay, this is not a terrible idea if it's not a terrible idea if there was a magnet connector and not a lightning connector. If it was a magnet connector and not a lightning connector, it would be okay. I'm going to recap for you, Renee, because I think you just disappeared
Yes.
for a second. I was just saying to the, I don't know how many people are watching, but this kind of product makes more sense for a smart connector. If the iPhone had gotten a smart connector in lieu of a lightning connector or in addition to a lightning connector, that's what I would have considered for like a peel on, peel off case. I don't know. It seems to me like you have to slide and then peel. It seems like a lot of potential for things to go wrong or break.
Can we break this? Because I'm fascinated by this, and I might be giving it more attention than it actually deserves. But firstly, I'm fascinated like why Apple decided not only to ship this thing at the end of the year, but why they decided to ship this thing. Like there are Mophie cases on the market. There are a lot of extended batteries. Why does Apple have to make an extended battery? Is it because they just think there's a lot of money in the market and they don't want to leave it for accessory makers? Is it because people are complaining about iPhone 6 battery life because there's no iPhone 6 Plus version? What's the need for this product?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to assume that part of it is complaining about the 6S battery life because as you mentioned, there is no 6 Plus. Although also, I think if they made a 6 Plus, this is the normal silicone case for the 6 Plus. I think if they made a 6 Plus hump, it would actually be physically impossible to hold around and be able to hold on both sides. Like I have pretty long fingers. I can reach an octave plus 3 on a keyboard.
It would be a little hump. It would be a Yoda-sized hump.
A little, my humps. Yeah, if they were finger-sized humps. Actually, if there were grips, that could be kind of cool. Like battery. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's a combination between trying to address the okay, maybe we would like this to have better battery life, and it doesn't quite. And Mophie is getting all of our money, especially because our customers are complaining about bad battery life. But honestly, I think the real reason they made this case was a giant FU to the people who are like, we don't need thinner phones, we need thicker phones, and we need thicker phones with more battery. So Apple's like, okay, yo, dog, I heard you liked more battery. So I put a battery on top of a battery and I put it in a silicone case for you. Here you go. How do you like it now?
How you like me now?
No, seriously. Like it kind of feels a little petty on Apple's part, not gonna
Well, I mean, I
lie.
saw some complaints that some people were saying, why don't they just make the iPhone 6s with bigger battery to begin with? And they do. It's called the iPhone 6s Plus. I
Yeah.
mean, that's
Oh,
the internal version of this.
well, it's funny. After I've now used the Success Plus for a couple months now. I'm surprised how quickly I got used to it. I had to relearn how to hold my phone because I was numbing my pinky for a while. But overall, I when I interacted with the 6S Plus with my fiance's phone, which he had a 6 Plus for the entirety of last year, I was like, oh my god, this battery is so long, it lasts forever. And now that I have a 6S Plus, I'm like, no, this battery is just the right amount of time. If I had, how did I ever manage with any less? This just about puts me to one day. I don't understand. The 6S has less battery. What's going on?
I know it's crazy. So I like to go by the assumption that Apple's not stupid. Like I know like Twitter especially is like an instant reaction rage machine, and we look and we vent and it's very quick. But I like to start off like and maybe Apple is stupid, so it might be a faulty assumption. But if we go by the assumption that Apple as a company in general isn't stupid, then they're making choices all the time, and we may agree with their choices or disagree with their choices. We might think some choices are good or bad. But if you start with the assumption that they're not stupid, then there's reasons for these things. And I always figure it's better to hate something for reasons just to hate it off instinct or gut feeling. So I think you're exactly right about that. I think there are people, because they took away some of the space for the Taptic engine, sorry, some of the space on the battery to fit in the Taptic engine, they're not getting the battery life they want. I think there is money in the accessory market. And I think they are tired of people saying all the time, oh, just add battery, because those people just don't understand how battery or product design works. Sorry, they don't. And so doing this is interesting. So once they decide they want to do this, they go through the processing. Well, what do we want to do? And they look at existing products like the Mophie, and they look at it and they go, well, that's a two-part case, and that kind of sucks because everyone loses the top part, or the hinge on it breaks, or it's two things you have to plug in, or it doesn't work for this or that. So they go, we're going to make a one-piece battery case, and then the design criteria revolves around that. And they might go, well, when you have the whole case molded, then you have to, like the Mophie case ships with an adapter for the headset because the headset can't fit in anymore because they have case all over every side of it. So you've got to put in an intermediary headset adapter like on the original iPhone, which kind of sucks. So they're like, well, let's make it as thin as possible around the edges. So all the buttons are right there. There's no big grooves. We don't have to put any pass-through buttons. We'll just make it like a silicone case, really close to the surface of all the buttons, all the ports, 100% accessible. Some people complain that cases like the Mophie interfere with signal, so we'll make sure it's got a super low profile. We'll put some passive antennas in there, so we won't interfere with signal at all. And then we'll literally make it a naked battery wrapped in silicon, and we'll put a hinge here. And because the silicon go right over the hinge, so you just pull it off the top, comes right off. It's one piece, doesn't interfere with your batteries. So from a practical point of view, the design choices they make are full. Or sorry, they made a lot of really sensible decisions. But you just look at it and you see hump. And are the decisions they made, are the advantages of this worth having that giant hump on the back?
People are going to buy it. I mean, that's the thing. People who don't know about Mophie or who just aren't interested in finding any other case, they go into the Apple Store and the Apple Store folks say, hey, here's this battery case. This will double your battery life. And they go, double my battery life? Really, you say? No, I think they'll sell a lot of them, despite the fact that they look weird and bizarre, and they're only available in white and charcoal. Really?
Yeah. So
Although,
that
you
like
know what? I give it to them for a second because there was a great little parody on Twitter earlier today about, oh, let's release a light pink version of the silicone case. Yeah, it does kind of look like a Band-Aid, especially with the little hump.
yeah, it does. And I kind of like the silver, space gray, gold, and pink rose gold colors, and the silicone doesn't really lend itself to that. The Apple has a whole range of silicone colors for the regular cases, and they're actual pink. There's no metallic finishes on them. But the white stuff, like with the Apple Watch charger that they just released a couple weeks ago, is only white. And I still, even though it's been really, I've been using it for like 3 weeks and it's really stain resistant, I still feel like it's going to get stained. Like I feel like this magic trackpad in front of me is going to get stained because white. And that's hella confusing.
You know what? So I've had this silicone case. It's a little furry right now because I have dogs. But this is my white silicone case on the 6S Plus, and there's a little bit of markings like on the sides. But overall, it has remained fairly white.
Yeah, it's so funny because I was talking about it on Twitter too, and one of the things I said was, then Apple puts form in front of a function, exclamation mark. Now, damn, that hump is ugly. And people think like I'm trying to defend Apple with that, but I think it points out the duality of human beings. Like with, oh, there's no touchscreen on the MacBook. I hate it. Oh, I have to touch the screen of my iPad Pro with the keyboard. I hate it. It's that these things aren't as black and white as we often talk about them. They are full of nuance, and it really is context dependent. So these sweeping statements about like bad, good, evil, triumphant, I think I want to get one of these and try it. I don't know if I'll keep it on or use it, because I think my answer to longer battery really is the 6 Plus, but I'm curious to try it. We'll see.
Yeah. See, my daily driver has kind of become the 6S Plus. So until they release a battery case for that, it's kind of
Would you use? I don't know if I'd even use one. I get a day and a half, 2 days already.
Really?
Yeah.
I do not.
6S Plus.
I get about a day.
It's interesting. Well, when I'm traveling, it's way less. Like if I'm out and about more, I'm using it a lot more. But now, especially with the iPad Pro, I just sit there and type away, and my iPhone is like passively in my pocket, not really doing anything.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. I wonder what they would do for an iPhone 6 Plus, because like you said, it would make, you'd have to have basketball player hands.
Yeah, I don't know. As I said, grips. That's my first guess.
Grips. All right, so have Apple stop now? Are we going to wake up again next week and there'll be, I don't know, an iPad Pro charging case? I don't know. I hope they've stopped.
That's a lot of, you know what I would like to see is a better keyboard case. We're talking about cases.
Yeah, so there has not been a flurry of, we're still, I think, down to the Apple smart keyboard, and the Logitech, what is it called? The Logitech Compare?
The Logitech Create.
Create, that's right, the Logitech Create case. So those seem to have been the only two out so far, and I'm still using the smart case, but it takes me a few minutes to get used to it every time. Those fabric keys are different.
I just, I've tried it in stores now, and I have to admit, I like the Logitech a lot better, but I hate the Logitech's case. What I really want, I want like an origami. I want a case that covers and protects my iPad, because I don't feel super comfortable carrying it around bare, just because it's a giant screen and I'm very clumsy. But I would like something that connects to, say, Magic Keyboard, and then I can just snap the Magic Keyboard in and then close it. It'll be swell. Or just a thinner version of Logitech's case. Honestly, this is such a gigantic piece of plastic, and it only allows you to hinge at one angle when you're connected to the smart connector, which is fine on a desktop and fine at a table, but terrible if you're sitting down somewhere. The screen is too far forward.
Yeah, so I actually, the one we saw at CES by the people who made the BlackBerry, like, I shouldn't say that because legal issues. The people who made the keyboard, Bluetooth keyboard cover for the iPhone, they made the Typo people. That's what I'm looking for. The Typo iPad case I really liked, because they had a very MacBooky like hinge, and you could put it at any angle you wanted. And just to remove glare and adjust things, I thought that was awesome. So I'm hoping there's a Typo keyboard for this at some point. So also, so actually, this isn't in the news, but this is Kevin Michaluk, our dear leader, was visiting last week, and he was talking a lot about Inbox. He was using Google's Inbox, because we use Google services for all the stuff at Mobile Nations, and he asked me if I tried it, and I said something at the time, which I like just offhand, that I don't ever want to care more about the app I'm using than I feel like the company that makes it does, because therein lies madness. Like if I'm getting really into something and the company's not really committed to it, it's going to go away. And then yesterday we got news that Dropbox was killing Mailbox.
Poor Mailbox. R.I.P. Carousel. And Carousel is the less important one, because I think it's just going to all end up back in the Dropbox app, which is honestly where it belonged. But Mailbox, I think, is the bigger sting for people. Largely because I know a lot of diehard Mailbox users and people who were nervous when Dropbox acquired it, and then Dropbox is like, it's okay, we won't do anything terrible to it. Now the acquisition. Remember.
Yeah, well, maintaining product divergent product lines is interesting, but it's also hard. Like Facebook put out paper, I forget how long ago, a year, 2 years ago. It's still US only. It still doesn't seem like, I know they have people working on it, but it doesn't seem as widely as well supported as the main Facebook app, which most of the world is using. And that sort of relationship is always precarious to me because companies don't have infinite resources.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to put too many fingers in too many pots. We've seen Google, kill off products willy-nilly because of that problem. Wave, RIP Wave, free Google apps. There's
Yeah,
lots
Reader.
of
I mean, so many things.
reader. Yeah.
Like I think you're always safer sticking to the core business of a company. If you're using the app that is their business, then they have a huge interest in supporting it. If you're not, if it's peripheral, if it's an experiment, then you just know that going in. And then if it goes away, it's like you had some fun times while they lasted.
Yeah. Sniff. That's
So
okay.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I said it's okay. You know what? As long as the carousel features will make its way into Dropbox, that's what I care. Because carousel actually had some really useful things. But I hated that it was in a separate app. It was
Yeah, and
hokey.
it's smart people working on it. So there was some interesting, I don't know, feedback, pushback. Last week we talked about the Mac App Store and whether it was being neglected or not. And I think it's almost impossible not to make the case that it's being neglected. But part of the feedback that I got was this comment that death by 1,000 cuts. Apple doesn't even let Apple doesn't give some people really want Apple to do on iOS what they do on the Mac App Store, and that is allow for a gatekeeper-like functionality so that if an app doesn't fit Apple's guidelines, it can still be released and the people who want to can opt into a trusted developer mode that lets them sideload apps. That to me is like a 5%er solution. I don't think most of the world would ever do it. But one of the examples that was given was people who switch from Android to iPhone can't bring their paid Android apps with them, even if the developer wants to give them a free copy of the app. And this made me really stop and think because almost like the case, it's easy to say things like this, but what does it actually mean? So I started so what I don't know is first, do people have a lot of paid Android apps? I know on iOS, the number of paid apps is always shrinking because of pressure from subscription apps and free apps and freemium apps. So the amount of apps you actually pay for up front gets lower all the time. And then I also don't know if people expect to get free copies of apps when they switch. I know on computers, like Adobe used to give you a cross grade, but it was do you remember if it was rare or not? Like you would just get free copies when you switched?
Yeah, I don't know. You had to rebuy everything from a PC to a Mac.
Yeah.
Even on Adobe until the CC subscription came out. I mean, you still had to buy the PC version or the Mac version of Photoshop.
I think
I'm
I got a
pretty sure they weren't.
discount. Like I think once in a while they experimented with discounts.
That may have happened, and I think that Office did discounts as well. But overall, it's a weird thing. I don't think that's ever really happened.
I guess the argument was a developer could always comp you a copy if they really wanted to. But again, and when you look at the console world, and I've always thought of iOS, like iPhone and Android, as more like consoles than like traditional PCs. If you go from Xbox to PlayStation, there's no expectation that all your Lego Batman and Indiana Jones games are going to come with you. You expect to have to buy them again, or you don't buy them again. You try something else. So I'm not even sure that if people have paid apps, whether they expect them to come with them or not. I thought that was the next big hurdle in that argument.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think anybody I mean, it's the land of the free. We definitely expect lots of things that we aren't necessarily guaranteed in our lives. And paid apps may be one of them. Who knows? But I personally, I wouldn't be like, yes, I think that I should get all of these apps that I bought because I switched to a completely different platform where those developers had to spend extra money developing the same app.
Yeah, it's super. And then like the third part is there a process that could handle this? Like I'm imagining that is there value in this? Because Apple is doing things like the move to iOS app where they're seeing, I think Tim Cook said 30% of new iPhone customers last quarter came from Android. So it's in Apple's best interest to enable this, and they're doing the move to iOS app. So could there be some process where in iTunes Connect, developers who want it go in and they flip a little switch and it says allow cross grades, and then when the move to iOS app detects a paid app that also exists on the App Store, it gives you like a promo code or something? Like, would that work and would it be useful?
I mean, theoretically, it could work because I think you would be able to scrape metadata enough to figure that out. However, you would need a couple things fixed in the App Store to do that. Number one, you'd have to make sure that you are metadata matching with the correct app. I mean, we've seen how iTunes Match has had success and failure over the years. And God knows I wouldn't want to buy, say, let's say Tweetbot hypothetically existed on Android. I wouldn't have wanted to buy Tweetbot on Android and then get like Twertbot on iOS. I like, Apple has to figure out its duplicates policy before it figures out anything else on that side. And also, for people who don't want cross grades, this is a great opportunity to introduce paid upgrades. Because if you're talking about, like we were talking about with discounts before, app developers could have the option to say, no, I'm not going to give you this for free, but I'll give you like $3 off, or you can get it for only 99 cents or something like that. And then the third option, which sounds actually more like the most Apple option to do, where Apple does it royalty style and basically says, we'll comp you all of the apps that you had on Android, and then we're just going to pay it into a giant central pot, and app developers will get a cut of that every month. So
yeah, it's super interesting to me because when you do move over from Android, because Google has all the Google Play apps in the iOS App Store, all your movies and music, if you do buy them from Google, I mean, if you buy them from Amazon or iTunes, whatever, you're also fine. But if you do buy them, it's easy to move over. But apps are still a walled garden everywhere, and they could be a lock-in. But there are so many apps, and some people are saying, well, Steam, you can use Steam on a PC or Windows, subscription-based. You can do the same thing with Adobe apps and Microsoft apps now. It's all subscription-based. You download the app container, enter in your logins, and you're using it. So we have, that's part of what makes this fascinating to me, is we have all these mechanisms moving around at the same time, and I'm just not sure, can't bring my paid Android apps with me would result in any significant number of additional switchers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hypothesis. I don't know.
Yeah, I get the overall point that people want more freedom, but here's the thing to me, and I hate saying this because it's a terrible, terrible, awful thing to say, but as much as people complain about the restrictions of the App Store, we have seen precisely no amazing Android apps result from not having those restrictions. Like, the best way to get Apple to change this is for Android to have apps that are so phenomenal that people will buy Androids, like apps that make platforms, almost like the equivalent of Halo and things in the game consoles. And if they had that, then there'd be so much pressure after we just forced to change things. But instead you have like Uber and Instagram and like all the transformative apps, they're just fine on iOS. There's not a single problem with them. And that means there's zero pressure on Apple to change anything.
Yep. No, pretty much.
So prove it. If you want Apple to restrict it, go to Android, make an app that is so great that Apple is forced to remove the restriction that stops you from making an iOS. They would change it tomorrow. Almost 100% certain.
Do we have a sponsor for today, Renee?
We do. I'm just pulling them up right now. I love it when they're a sponsor. We are thrilled to have Smile Software sponsoring the show today. And they want us to talk about Text Expander. And I say they want to talk about this because they make a plethora of amazing products. And you never know which one. It's almost like opening up an advent calendar. You never know which awesome chocolate or Lego toy you are going to get. But Text Expander improves your communication. What you do with Text Expander is you create these little snippets, and then they expand when you write them into full-on sentences. For example, I have all my email addresses. Like I have R iMore, RGM for Gmail, RIC for it's not RIC, something less likely to be typed, but I went from my iCloud address, and when I hit those characters, the email address pops in, makes filling in forms super fast. I have my home address, I have my work address, I have every podcast that I work on. I type a couple characters, it pulls the clipboard, inserts it, and then populates the entire podcast post. And I don't have to type the template every time I want to do a show. We have names for when we do transcripts. You just type like, I forget what it is for Tim Cook, but it's TIC or something like that. And it fills it up with Tim Cook, so I don't have to type the name. And Tim Cook's not hard to type, but you get to things like old days, Peter Oppenheimer, and some of the longer stuff. It just saves so much time and work. And you can customize them for everything. I have them for links, so it automatically puts in the title for the link and wraps it up in Markdown. And we have things where you just type in a couple characters. I think it's FPR, and it puts the formatting, the divs for a press release container for the website, and then inserts the clipboard in the middle of it. And I could just go on and on. And it's really cool now because if you type the same thing multiple times, it'll pop up a reminder saying, do you want to make this a snippet? And I say, well, yes, I do. And then I make it a snippet, and it saves me more time. You can customize stock replies by adding fill-in fields and pop-ups to provide the human touch. You can use snippets on your iPhone and iPad with Text Expander Touch. touch, and the Text Expander custom keyboard. There is just so much you can do. So Text Expander 5, like I said, it now suggests abbreviations, making it even easier to find ways to save time. You can place snippet data anywhere on iCloud or Dropbox. We actually have a shared Dropbox repository for all the snippets that we make across mobile nations. Text Expander 5 is fully compatible with El Capitan. Text Expander 3 Plus custom keyboard is available for iPad and iPhone. And Text Expander 5 costs only $44.95. And I know people today in like the free app, freemium app climate, it's like, oh my God, there's an app that costs more than $2. But if you think about it, the only thing more valuable than money is time. You can make more money. You cannot make more time. And something that saves me a few minutes work, every morning and a few minutes work every evening, that quickly adds up. That far exceeds, like in a couple of days, I have more than made up that $44.95. And the rest of the year, I am so far ahead that I just cannot live without it anymore. Upgrades are $19.95 for existing users. It's free to those who purchased on or after January 1st, 2015. It does require Yosemite and later excels at El Capitan, but it is one of the most useful products I own. One of the first things that I install anytime I am setting up or updating a device. So that is Text Expander from Smile Software. Please go to smilesoftware.com/iMore and check it out. Thank you so much, Smile. I love them so much, Rand. They make me smile.
They're great. They're absolutely great.
All right. So I lost the page that I was looking at on what we were going to talk about. What we were going to talk about next. Yeah. So the debate is raging about smaller iPhones again, and we put up a poll because one of the things that's getting more and more confusing to me is sorting out Twitter noise from real people. And a lot of the things that people that our circles on Twitter say they want is not the same as the real world. Like people were really upset there's no Bluetooth keyboard support on the Apple TV. Turns out like 2% of people use that functionality, and almost all of those are developers. And I love the developers, but that is a different priority order for products than if 60% of mainstream customers used it. So there was a rumor that once again, Apple was working on a 4-inch iPhone potentially for early next year. And we wanted to know, because our readers are like super hardcore Apple people. They're like power users. And we wanted to sort of figure out what, not just whether they wanted it or not, but why maybe they would want it. So we asked, would you be interested in a new 4-inch iPhone? 11% of the people said I'd be very interested, as I have hesitated upgrading my iPhone because the 6S or 6S Plus was too big. So that's about 11 or 12% of people. Mm-hmm. About 13% of people said I'd possibly interested in, especially if it was less expensive than the current iPhones, because sometimes people conflate smaller with cheaper, and there's still this whole I want a cheaper iPhone vibe out there. Around 17% of people said, yes, I definitely want a smaller iPhone. Not for any particular reason, I just want it, like just for every reason. 60% of people said not interested, as I love the size of the new, larger iPhones. That is almost opposite to what we see on Twitter.
Yep. I'm not surprised. I mean, when we go to Twitter and just social media in general as a mouthpiece, generally we tend to complain about the things that we don't like. We rarely praise the things that we do like on Twitter. I would say it's probably a 3-to-1 ratio, maybe even a 4-to-1 ratio for complaints to everyone like super excited thing. I like my 6S Plus a lot. I don't think maybe I've made one tweet about how I like the new size. And like 5 or 6 tweets about the things that I don't like. So I'm not terribly shocked. Also, again, like you were saying, we're dealing with a very niche audience here. We're dealing with people who are already Apple fans and maybe, we're fans of the iPhone 4. Who knows?
Yeah, it is interesting, though, because the challenge here is the Apple needs to have the fewest devices cover the widest range of customers possible. And for many years, they just had one iPhone that they thought everybody would buy. But you get to a certain point where people have different wants or desires. Like bigger phones became popular. And by having a small phone, you're leaving out a huge part of the addressable market. So you add a bigger phone. And the question becomes, well, what two sizes are like? You can do a Samsung thing where you have a phone at every 1/4 inch interval. I mean, Derek Kessler, our friend from Mobile Nations, has run out of room in a tweet to put all their phone sizes in, which is one way is hilarious, but another way means everyone gets almost a perfect size for them. But that's super expensive to manufacture, and it leads to like some cheap phones, some expensive phones. What is the right size for Apple? Is 4 and 5.5 better? Is 4.7 and 5? Obviously, they feel these two sizes are good. And would they add enough additional customers by putting out a new, smaller iPhone?
I don't know. I mean, in part, I'm like I like this 4-inch iPhone, but now that I've gone big, I can't. I don't know if I'll ever go back. I don't know if I can.
Well, that's the thing is the human brain is so malleable. Like we've been using the
Really
iPad
is.
Pro for a few weeks. I pick up my iPad Air. It looks like a mini to me.
Like a midget. Yeah. You know what? And honestly, the more I use the Pro, the more I start to think that this was the right iPad size from the beginning. That the 10-inch was just too small, and the mini is great for a reader if you want like an e-reader, but also it's not an iPad size. And yeah, I kind of feel the same way about the iPhones. Although you know what, the iPhone, I feel like there's a little bit more malleability there because you don't necessarily need the 5.5-inch screen or 4.7-inch screen. You could probably get away with a 4-inch screen depending on what you want to do with it. But it's a trade-off of how much time do I want to spend on my phone and how many activities do I want to do on it versus how big is the physical trade-off. For me, I do a lot of work on my iPhone, a surprising amount of work, really. And as such, I need the biggest iPhone possible. I really need it in my arsenal. And I've realized this the more that I start to use the 6S Plus. Like I use my iPhone a lot to shoot video and shoot photos, and the bigger phone is just honestly better for that than the smaller devices. And optical image stabilization for both photos and videos is a huge coup. So for that alone, I'm like, the big iPhone is for me. For people who just really want to use it for texting, Twitter, and phone calls, like I can understand just wanting to carry the small phone and maybe a bigger laptop.
Yeah, it's just again, it's that duality because for about a year and a half, we had people going, Apple stubbornly refusing to make a bigger iPhone, even though that's what the market wants. And now it's like Apple stubbornly refusing to make a smaller iPhone because that's what I want. And it just, I guess, again, to me, it shows the width of the market. The last thing I had on my list was something that I forget. I think we started talking about it at some point, but Apple's got the split view Well, they've got the multitasking for iPad now. iOS 9 allows them to do slide over, split view, and picture in picture. And I was sort of curious where could that go next. So I pulled some of the stuff that we were talking about and came up with a short list of things. So one of the things that sort of bothers me now is that if you have a primary and secondary app, the method for switching those apps is incredibly different. Like the one on the right, the secondary app, you have that new pull down thing with a switcher, but if you have a lot of apps in there, it doesn't scale. You're flicking up and down, trying to find the app you want. But the app on the left doesn't have that. So you have to either use the home button or the multi-touch gestures or hit a link. And that makes it sort of an inconsistent experience for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And you can't switch those two apps. Like it would be super convenient if you could just do something that would switch the apps on side to side.
Yeah, so there's a sort of cheap hack to do that where you just you take the split view divider and you slide that all the way to the left, and that makes that app full screen, and then you pull out the drawer and switch to the app you were using before. So that kind of works, but it's clunky and it's really kind of awful.
It's way better than El Capitan, where you've got to basically destroy the split view and build it back
True
from scratch.
facts. True facts.
Because as far as I know, like there's nothing you can, once you've made a split, like you can't just make a split view. You've got to either make one side, pick the other, or drag something into mission control on top of something else. And then once you've done that, that's it. You're stuck with that forever until you break it apart. And then when you break it apart, it goes full screen for one of the apps. And then you got to go and try it. Like just super not malleable.
Nope.
Dragging and dropping content between the primary and secondary app. Because the minute I saw this, I just wanted to be able to touch something, let it float up and pull it to the other side and then just drop it in somewhere.
I know drag and drop. I'm kind of hoping is an iOS 10 thing. It seems so obvious to me that it's possible that it just wasn't ready in time for an iOS 9 ship date. But I'm praying, because especially as I use the iPad Pro more and more, I'm like, I would love to just tap a photo and drag it over to my notes window or to to a download or upload thing. It feels like the next step.
Yeah, and it would do one of those things because drag and drop is still for me the killer feature on the Mac. It just makes things so fast, cognitively so fast.
Yeah, and then you add touchscreen, touch into it. I mean, honestly, even you could either 3D touch it, you could do 2 fingers to drag. You have a lot of options with multiple digits and multi-touch screens. So I think
A
that
little scissor touch, cut it, and
yeah, exactly. Cut it around. There's so many options, guys. I'm assuming that someone at Apple has been working on this for a couple years, and we'll see it next year, the year after, and they'll be like, "We've come up with the best way of multi-touch movement ever."
Today, Apple invents drag and drop.
Yeah, seriously.
Um, this is going to sound really dumb, but I still want it. Right now, you can do 50-50 in landscape, or you can do like, you can have the right-hand sidebar, basically. You can't have a left one. I'd like to be able to have skinny left on some occasions.
I've had skinny left. I think I can do skinny left with Slack, but there are very few apps that allow it.
Yeah, I just want to be able to pull it and like to 3/4 of the way across and leave it that way instead of having to have.
Well, you can't. It's annoying because you can't have the slide out. Like I would like the slide out on either side. Being a
Yes.
lefty, it would be really really nice to have that. But yeah, maybe hold on. Maybe you can't. I was pretty sure I got a skinny Slack.
I keep trying and I can't get skinny left.
No, you know what? I can't. Never mind. I lied.
Yeah, I would just like
Oh,
that
that's
because
lame.
sometimes I want the bulky content on the right.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Same reason I'd like 50-50 in portrait mode, but I don't know. I think it would make a big deal, but I just like it because it's consistent. What I would really like, the more that I use it, what I would really like sometimes is 50-50 horizontally, especially like on the iPhone. I think it'd be the iPhone 6 Plus. I think it would be great.
I would love, honestly, I don't even need a full split view on the iPhone 6s Plus, but I would love a pullover, like a pop over. Yeah, like pull halfway down or pull halfway. The problem is that pulling down gets you notification center and pulling up gets you control center. But I could even, honestly, I could even do a swipe over. Or just using that as a way to switch apps. 3-finger swipes, like you have the multitask gestures with the iPad.
Yeah, I feel like the screen's big enough for that.
It's absolutely big enough for that. And that was one of the things when I was using my iPad Pro for a couple weeks just solely as my only computer, and I'd go back to my iPhone and I'd start to do things that worked really well on the iPad, like, oh, I need to copy this. Okay, I'll just slide over. Nah, crud.
Like I get why they don't do it because anytime a keyboard is involved, it would cover essentially the entire
it wouldn't work.
Split view. But there's some instances where I'm just like looking at something and I want like the movie playing, but not in picture in picture. I just want it like to cover the whole top of the screen or something, and then let me work in the rest of the screen. And I feel like
picture in picture.
well, picture in picture, I think also would be great for apps. Like if you could load the remote view for a landscape app into picture in picture, and then have like you could have like pCalc or something floating on the screen, and then use it as a calculator while the rest of the app is over there. I think that would be like an awesome addition as well.
Absolutely.
And of course, the perennial request right now is that everyone wants the remote view controllers to be separate from the app. So 2 Safari windows or 2 of the same app windows visible at the same time, 2 email windows, 2 browser windows, 2, I guess, pages or whatever you want to use. But just the ability like on a Mac to have 2 of the same app windows open at the same time.
Yeah. I do that.
I don't know if we'll get that in iOS 10 or not, but I do hope they continue with this, like paying the iPad some specific attention, because all we got for years was those multitasking gestures and nothing else. Everything else was just a direct port from the iPhone version. And I like that they're giving it some attention because now we have this iPad Pro and it's phenomenal, but it needs continued love.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
They cannot just phone that in anymore. I'm not saying iPad OS. I'd like it. I'm not saying it, but
a little bit more for the Plus, for those lovely Plus users.
Well, we were talking about this earlier. It's just the amount of stuff we got this year was insane. When you stop to think about it, even like we got a bunch of devices, but we got 2 full app stores as well.
We got 2 full app stores. We got new apps, watch apps, new Apple TV apps. We got new OSs, watch OS, TV OS. In addition to a new version of iOS and a new version of OS 10, I can sit here all day and be like, oh, I'd love this for Apple to do this. And I'd love for Apple to do this. And I'd love for Apple to do this. And then you look at the year in review. I mean, Renee, our year in review is so big that we're splitting it up into multiple articles.
Yeah, and shows. And it's not going to be pretty. I was just looking at the list and crying a little bit.
Yeah, it's okay.
Just stop it, Apple. Can we stop now,
we have
please?
like 2 more weeks of December, and then we have to fit a Star Wars in there somewhere. What? We'll figure it out. We'll just be writing in the theater. It'll be great. But no, Apple, you know what? there are stuff that Apple needs to fix. Absolutely. There are things that are still incomplete, woefully incomplete. Brent Simmons wrote a really great article
Yeah.
yesterday or the day before about bugs in mail. There are some core issues that Apple really should focus on. But I will tip my hat to them just for the sheer volume of stuff that they released this year. I don't necessarily think that that was maybe the best call, and we'll talk more about that in our official year in review stuff. But yeah, they just did so much, so many, new hardware. Since when does Apple release new hardware products randomly? Oh, new battery case, new watch charger,
All the
new
bands,
I
all the watch
yeah,
bands.
new watch bands, new TV remote. There's a lot. There's a lot.
So
New
much.
stands, new charging stands. And in addition to watch, TV, iPhone Plus, iPad Pro, new iMacs, new MacBook. What am I? A new operating system. There's a lot, guys.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
It's almost stupid. I mean, I hate using that word, but it is almost a stupid amount of stuff. It is stunning. It is like what is it? What is the old saying? Stunned by a gaggle of ox or something.
Mm-hmm.
No, I get that. Like, I still can't get my text replacement shortcuts to sync from onto my iPad Pro. They're on my Mac. They're on my iPhone. My iPad Pro is empty. I don't get it. I don't know. Cloud is hard,
Cloud is very hard.
and there's
So
nothing you can
it's
do.
no. I'm hoping that Apple gives their employees a much needed 10 days off at Christmas. I know they got the Thanksgiving week off. Some time, regroup, reset. Let's begin 2016 with polishes.
Yeah.
Let's just do some polishes.
This year, you want to get in on the action?
Yeah, Siri really does. I'm very confused.
All right, Ren. So if people want to find you in the height of all this madness, where can they go?
They can go to Settern on Twitter, SETTERN, or on Instagram, as well as on iMore.com. I promise, have iPad Pro experiment roundups and completions today and tomorrow. We've got some really good stuff coming on editing with iMovie and doing audio work. Can you actually make things in GarageBand just using an iPad Pro? Find out.
Find out on the next exciting episode of iMore.
iMore readers / podcast listeners, we are talking about making some ebooks for the end of the year. So if you have a topic in particular that you would like to see us, that where you're like, I need a book of this and nothing else, let us know. We are planning to update our Apple Music book with the Apple TV and some of the new stuff that's come out, including the upgrade limit. But in addition to that, we're looking at releasing 1 or 2 new books for the holidays. So if you have opinions, let us know on Twitter.
Yes, Twitter and opinions, they go together like chocolate and peanut butter.
True facts.
And you're also still doing the radio theater, or is that wrap for the year?
I am. We just recorded our half of our Christmas special. We're going to be recording the other half next Wednesday, I think. And so listen up, because we've got a lovely Christmas special coming for you, and we have 10 whole episodes. 10 episodes on for our first season on theincomparable.com/radio. Please go check it out. It's one of the best things that I think I've done in years. It's produced by the lovely and incomparable Jason Snell of 6 Colors. It's written by David Lohr, and it's starring me, Renee Ritchie, Dan Morin, John Moltz, Jason Snell, John Syracusa, and a gigantic other list of cast of characters.
I think you snuck Leo Laporte in there too at some point.
Leo Laporte, yes, Leo Laporte has a couple of prominent roles. Andy Ihnatko. If you ever want to hear Andy Ihnatko try and imitate a 1950s Disney animation character,
it's a cavalcade.
Yeah, do you like Doctor Who? We've got a Doctor Who parody. You like Nikola Tesla? You'll be in luck. You like James Bond? You like Indiana Jones? You like old serials? Like we've got it all for you guys. It's really fun.
Awesome. You can find me at Renee Ritchie. You can find all of us at iMore. You can find the video version of this show at youtube.com/iMore video. The audio version is on iTunes. Just search for iMore. We are going to be back. We're going to do a bunch of writing about the end of the year, but we'll probably do a couple podcasts on it too, because like Serenity said, so much. I just want a big giant stop at Apple sign at this point. But as much as I complain, it's funny because 2 years ago we're like, Apple hasn't released anything. It's June already. What the hell? Like, there's just nothing. What's going on? And now it's like, no. Like, it feels like Nevin Mergen's game where like this stuff is just falling on you continuously.
It's the incident. Yeah,
it's the incident. Yeah.
The incident is Apple's just pouring monochrome white silicone items on us until we cry for mercy.
Yeah, and we'll get a closer look at that new battery case as soon as we can. Otherwise, everyone, thank you so much. We will be back on Thursday, I believe. Trying to sneak in extra shows.
Thursday, yes.
We'll start reviewing the year.
All right.
Help us. Thank you, Ren. Have a good one.
Bye, Renee. See you later.